Hi guys, my name is Annabelle from Annabelle and Ben's Antics, and this, funnily enough, is Ben.
Hi guys.
Now, we have just moved, and before we moved, I cut out a whole bunch of projects that I wanted to do. Pretty much all of them are cosplays, not entirely, but 90%, and because I can't decide what I want to make next, Ben is going to choose for me. You may ask as many questions as you like, otherwise have a rummage and see what you can find.
What's up with the mushrooms?
So the mushrooms is for a dress that Her Universe sells it. I can't afford to buy it, so I actually have the bodice here. And then the mushrooms are for the skirt. We're going for a dress, okay?
We're doing mushroom dress.
So, Ben has picked the mushroom dress, which is otherwise known as the Her Universe Tinkerbell dress, I believe. It is this one here, anyway. And I would love it. I would love to wear it. I would love to buy it. I cannot afford it. So we're going to make a dress I cannot afford, and this stuff's cut out. I think I filmed that, so let's go have a look at that.
For the pattern, I made some adjustments to my orange pumpkin dress that I made a year or two ago now, cutting it all out from a green velvet curtain that I got for free off the Facebook Marketplace. Back to Australia, and the bodice pieces were all laid out and pinned together. The pink stuff, by the way, was my mock-up, made from the leftovers of my Sally dress. I was going to use this as the lining, however, given how hot this country is, I quickly decided to abandon that idea. Once it was all pinned, we got stitching. Carefully at first before I got excited, and we went a little bit quicker. I then overlocked the raw edges, as I can see this dress getting a lot of wear, so we want to make it as durable as possible.
Everything on the bodice that I can stitch, I have stitched. The next thing I need to do is work out the sleeves, because they're really what need to go on next. Once we've worked on the sleeves, then we can figure out what's going on with the skirt. However, the pattern I was going to use for the sleeves, I can't find it, which is really annoying. However, I've got a kind of photo of it, so what I'm going to do is quickly cut up an old paper bag that I've got and just see if I can sketch out a new one that's roughly the same.
Looking at the computer references, I measured up and drew out a sleeve pattern. This was then cut out as a mock-up using Ben's old trouser legs before it was attached to the bodice mock-up, and I tried it on. The poof of the sleeve was perfect, however it was a bit too long and the base was a little too curved for what I was going for, so some adjustments were made, and yay, much better now.
So now I know what I'm doing with the sleeves, I can actually cut everything out. I did lay the fabric out on the bed, but I've now put a bunch of stuff onto it, so let's clear that, lay it on the floor, and we will cut out the sleeves and then work out what it is exactly we're doing for the skirt so that everything can be pinned and attached. Can we just appreciate for a moment how gorgeous and perfect this fabric is? Look at it. I got this from AliExpress and it was super cheap. It is 100% cotton and I am so happy. As it happens, at the moment I actually don't have an ironing board, though I did get a very fancy iron for like $5 from a literal trash recycling place, and they're like, oh yeah, we're throwing that away, and it's brand new and it still has instructions, so yes. Can't iron this though. And I can just see all of the regular sewers yelling at me. Trust me, I would if I could. Right now it's not an option. We're working with what we've got. I can't iron it. Doesn't mean it's not going to come out well. Touch wood. This is another great example of we work with what we've got. I want all of this for skirts because I like my skirts very highly gathered. This is literally about 1.5 centimeters, maybe even just a centimeter over sticking the edge. So what we're going to do is just going to give it a little fold down the middle, just so that the corners hit either corner and I don't have to cut two separate pieces and waste a whole load of fabric.
The fold was made and the sleeves were cut. That centimetre won't make too much of a difference in the end, so I'm not too fussed, especially if it means I get to make the most out of this stunning fabric.
For the sleeves, I need to do a basting stitch to make it nice and easy for me to gather them, and according to the instructions on my new sewing machine, that means I have to use this foot, which kind of looks like a ruffling foot. I'm not quite sure how this works, so I'm going to screw it on, quickly nip back to my laptop, read the instructions and see how we go with a test piece of fabric and just kind of hope for the best.
So we got fiddling and it did work, just oddly.
Well, that genuinely has to be the oddest basting stitch I've ever seen, literally 1 foot pedal to 1 step at a time, but it worked and it was easy enough that, you know what, I might just see if Ben wants to do the next one.
I don't like it.
It's weird, isn't it?
I don't like it. I don't like it.
With Ben scared off basting, I got pinning the sleeves onto the bodice before stitching them on and once again overlocking those raw edges. Now here is where I had a choice, to elastic or not to elastic. On one hand, the original dress definitely had puffed elasticated sleeves, but on the other, I'm a drapey kind of girl. In the end, we measured out and pinned on some elastic, stitched it on and got about pinning the edges of the bodice together.
So I would work, but the neighbour's cat just came into the house and now it's snuggling me on the bed. So I don't think work is quite going to happen this morning.
Once those were pinned on, I realised I should probably do the modesty panel, which, had I actually thought about it, I probably could have done the centre front in one big piece. However, the panel I cut was too large and too bulky, so I unpicked a side, pinned one straight edge to the side of the bodice, and played around until I was happy that I had enough room for the grommets before cutting. Everything was then stitched together, and sorry about any weird camera angles, I'm still figuring out how to film in my new space. But once it was overlocked too, I blind stitched the underside of the modesty panel to help it lay a little flatter and to prevent any weird bunching around there. Then it was time to put some bias binding around the neckline. I didn't pin this as there was two right angled corners and freehanding it just seemed easier as I went along on the machine. The last thing to do was hem the sleeve, and for this we rolled and top stitched. Next it was over to the bed, where it took me exactly 28 minutes to use invisible stitches to seal the neckline by hand, leaving a little free either side of the neckline so I could later seal the top of the zip with it.
Okay, so I can't really pin it in the back because I'm home alone and there's nobody here to help me and I'm not that flexible, but this is looking amazing. These sleeves are utterly perfect. They are currently hanging off my shoulder because, like I said, the back isn't attached. I've pinned the front. I might adjust it a little bit. I'm going to quickly do what I need to do on the skirt before I finalise this. I love this. I love this. I love this. I love this. Tinkerbell dress of my dreams. Here I come.
I measured out the front panel fold properly before hand stitching the sides using an invisible stitch where you catch one or two threads of the fabric to keep it in place. And with that done, we were onto the skirt. Now, if I'm being honest, I probably ordered slightly too much fabric, and to my dismay, the selvage edges didn't pattern match up, so I rolled along with both these problems and folded my fabric into three. Again, my apologies for not ironing this. An ironing board will be the first thing I buy next time I get a YouTube paycheck from all of the ads. Talking of which, if you want to help me in that endeavour, please like this video if you're enjoying it and leave me a comment with suggestions as to what to make next. This is a great and easy way to support the channel and really helps me out helping get my videos in front of even more wonderful people. For the top panel, I measured a slight angle on it to account for the angle on my bodice, which the original dress did not have. But am I mad about this? Definitely not. In fact, I think it gives it even more shape. Then they were all sewn together with a slightly larger seam allowance than I would normally use to cover the writing on the edge before I ran a basting stitch along the top. After that, I gathered it to the bodice and started stitching. The stitching, by the way, was a nightmare. First my needle broke, then while trying to overlock the edges my thread constantly snapped, which was just maddening.
So we sort of have a dress, sort of being the main word there, but I love it, it looks so good. I've just got the grommets to do on the top and then that's all finished, so that's awesome. Still needs to be hemmed, but again that's going to happen after the next step, which is the zipper. Also the inside, I'm not going to lie, a lot messier than I anticipated, and I'm probably going to have to reinforce a lot of this overlocking with hand stitching, but problem for later me.
I pinned on the zipper and got stitching when...
So here's the thing, I accidentally left too much seam allowance on this side. I figured I'd just roll with it and do an extra big one, it didn't really matter. But then I've just spotted that actually my ruffles haven't caught a massive chunk of the ruffling just here. So we're going to unpick it and I'm going to adjust the seam allowance, but it does mean that where I've started sewing the zip, where it was coming out absolutely perfectly, we are now going to have to, unpick all of that as well. Fun.
Thus began much unpicking and repinning before a trip back to the sewing machine where that edge was fixed. Probably for the better if I'm honest. And at last we were back to stitching the zip. And boy did this actually go well, and I love it, it is actually super neat for once. I then stitched up the base of the skirt before pinning and hemming around the base. And this is also where I will mention that if you want the pattern for this dress, make sure you check out my Ko-Fi shop and consider dropping a donation while you're there. Everyone who donates gets their name embroidered on a project, and at the moment all the money that I'm receiving is going towards a colour changing Aurora Disney princess dress, which oh my gosh I have plans for and I really want to share with you.
So I just wanted to show you guys two things that I just decided to do on the spur of the moment last night. The first is that this back edge, it was all flopping around. What I've done is I've just gone along the edge and I've just used little teeny tiny invisible stitches just to seal it down, which will make it a lot more comfy to wear. You can kind of see them on this side, but they're so tiny I don't really mind. The other thing I also did was stitch a hook and eye. I only had black ones, really large silver ones, who went with black. However, I learned from my autumn dress, which is that sometimes zippers just need a little help closing at the top. And the only thing that I'm annoyed about, which I've only just noticed, is that at the back there is about a ½ centimetre difference between the two sides. Now the top lines up absolutely fine, I'm not worried about that. I'm guessing these were just slightly uneven. I didn't notice before I'd attached the skirt, the zip and everything else, otherwise I would have trimmed them to be even, but at the end of the day it doesn't really matter. The skirts all ended up being pretty much the same length, so we're reasonably happy with that, meaning the last thing to do to attach the grommets on the front of the dress.
With that I marked out where all the grommets needed to go before doing a test grommet on a scrap of velvet. Then it was on to cutting holes and putting in the metal before a whole day of hand stitching over the metal to give it a more cottagecore look with some nice embroidery thread. This came out super neat and I was extra happy when it was finally done, and I at last got to lace it up with this lovely green and gold ribbon. Ben actually picked this one out especially for me. I did make sure to sear off the ribbon ends to keep them from fraying as well, because like I said, this dress is going to be getting a lot of wear and we want to make it last. And now for the grand reveal!
Okay, this dress, I feel like a fairy tale princess. Do I look like one, Ben?
Queen of mushrooms.
Queen of mushrooms indeed. I'm quite happy with this. I also like this fabric more than the original one, and I think it was a lot cheaper. Ben, you're the maths person, get out your calculator. So, velvet curtains, free. Ribbon was $1 Australian. So expensive so far. Elastic, which I think was about $3. We then had the fabric, which was the most expensive thing, at $20, $5 postage, so 25 Australian dollars. And then thread, I had that in my stash, so that was free. And then the zipper, which was
$5.
So all in all, how much did this dress cost, Ben?
A grand total of $35.
35 Australian dollars.
Well, that's not including your time, that's just material.
But that's fine, because if you take that from the original 46 US dollars, what's US to Australian?
46 US dollars is exactly 67 Australian dollars.
So the original dress was the equivalent of 67 Australian dollars. We've made it for 34, which is technically less than half price, and I like mine more because it's longer, which makes me have a lot more princess vibes. And if I ever do want to shorten the skirt, that's easy enough to do. I'm very happy with this. It is a look that I am totally here for, so no complaints. So what do I like most about this dress? Well, obviously the mushroom fabric is amazing. The velvet curtains turned out very nice. The grommets, they looked really dodgy when it was just the metal because my grommet press isn't amazing, but now I've covered them in thread, they are absolutely fantastic. So I am very, very happy about that. The things I don't like about this dress, very easy. The inside is a total mess. I mean, it's a functional mess, but it is a total mess, and probably gonna need to fix it at some point.
Yeah, but that's more due to the fact that you've been using a new machine that you haven't had a chance to get to use.
Exactly, and as this is the first big project that I've done on my new machine, I think it came out quite well. There's certainly some kinks there that I need to work out, but that comes with practice and getting to know the machine, because all of them are different, and this one has quite the personality. Otherwise, the only other thing I would like to do at some point, I think, is just take an extra inch off either side of the zip on the back, just because it is a little bit loose around the waist. It is comfy, but I have been going to the gym a lot and I've lost a little bit of weight since I made this pattern, so it is slightly looser than I would like, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. And the other thing, which, and I don't know how I've done this, so maybe you can figure it out, this fits me perfectly if I am wearing a padded bra. If I am not, it is quite loose, which is fine. It's one of those things. I am perfectly happy to wear a padded bra with it, but it is just slightly annoying. And also, if you like this pattern and you want to make this dress yourself, it is available for free on my Ko-Fi shop, so please go check it out. And if you wanted to drop us a donation to help us with our future projects, I would very, very much appreciate it. And everyone who donates does get their name embroidered on my next sewing project. With that, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please remember to drop it a like, subscribe to see more cosplay, vintage sewing and vintage sewing machine content. We do post videos every single Wednesday, and Ben is even doing some of his own videos this year, aren't you, honey?
Yes. Well, trying to anyway.
We're getting there. We're getting there. And otherwise, guys, have a beautiful day, and we will see you next Wednesday. Bye!
And a big thank you to Patreons Kelly Nelson and Ganny Meadows for supporting me over on Patreon. If you guys want to as well, the link is in the description down below.